All right, everybody, good afternoon. We are still licking our wounds after a rough Sunday game. But we're moving through Monday. We're alive. We're getting through it. And we got to talk about Pro Football Focus. We got to talk about the graders. What did they think? Once again, this is not a video to imply that I think PFF gets everything right, nor is it a video to imply that I think they get everything wrong. So it's just information that we take in as a fan base when we're trying to put everything together about this team. So starting with the offense, let's just look at the overall grades. One guy had, according to Pro Football Focus, a standout day, and it's AJ Barner, who played not even 20 snaps. So that's not a good sign. Now, he did get graded out really well, and it's not an insignificant number of snaps, right? 85.5. Don't really know how they did the math on that one, because if you do the math on his three areas that were graded, passing, plays, pass blocking, and run blocking, he's good in all three, but it doesn't add up to anywhere near 85.5. But again, Pro Football Focus doesn't always do things in the way that seems the most obviously correct. they don't, or excuse me, obviously the most mathematical. Sometimes there's another factor at play here. So, hey, AJ Barner, you want to say that he's a bright spot in this game? I'd say that's definitely accurate, regardless of how many snaps he played. Second place, JSN, even though they gave him a miserable run block grade, which, I mean, this is part of the problem that we're running into right now. Our receivers can't run block. We don't have receivers that can run block that well. That's why we don't run outside zone. That's why we run the ball up the middle so much, and that's why the interior offensive line is allowed to blow up as many plays as they get blown up. But JSN did play a good game on passing downs, admittedly, right? 76.1. I would say that we needed him to take that game over. He didn't, but he played well. And the bronze medal, and this is the thing that I kind of mentioned in my video yesterday. People weren't really hearing it, but Geno Smith played a good game on the field. When Geno Smith was actually on the field, when the play was going, he played well. Like, it's hard to make anything happen when you don't have your number one receiver and you're down to a bunch of guys that can't really run fast at all. So I think this grade is actually pretty reflective of reality. Problem I had with Geno yesterday was the stuff that happened after the play was over, where he was kind of having a hard time controlling himself, and you could see it got to him. And that stuff I can't really go for. That stuff I can't really be okay with, because he's the quarterback of the team. But on the field as a player, yeah, I do think he played well. I agree with Pro Football Focus here. I think they're accurately capturing the fact that he's got very little to work with, and he was put in really bad situations by his team for the most part. Laken Tomlinson with the good grade here, which surprises me. I don't know if I agree with it. I will say the pass protection yesterday was pretty good. I think the run blocking's atrocious, but the pass protection, I think we got good graded out pretty respectably in that area, and I think that's correct. I think that part of the offense was actually working about as well as it's worked all season. I'm still surprised that Tomlinson's grade so high when he had a penalty, but notable that they didn't think he was particularly bad in this game, and something that we should at least take into consideration moving forward. Brady Russell gets a pretty good grade, but only 4 snaps, so it doesn't mean anything. Anthony Bradford gets graded well. That one, I'm going to have to say I don't agree with. 65.3, that's above average. That's above the water line. That's above the sea level. I don't know about that one. Again, I have a very poor opinion of our interior offensive line in general, but Tomlinson I can kind of buy. Bradford with a 51.9 pass block grade. He was one of the guys who actually did get negatively credited for his pass protection. I don't know. Run blocking, they actually gave him a decent grade on. I don't know how. We couldn't run the ball at all in any direction, no matter what we did. So not really sure I buy that. But past that, you got Charles Cross with an okay grade. I didn't feel like Cross was part of the problem out there personally, so I'm okay with that. But the run blocking grade is bad, which makes sense because, we can't run the ball. So none of those grades should really be all that good. Charbonnet gets graded okay. Excuse me. Gets graded okay. Not the best, but his pass protection remains really good, and everything else is adequate, which is understandable, by the way. He has no chance with this run blocking, right? He's got no chance. Oluwatimi earns an average grade on the 3 snaps he got. Again, I think he was playing like tight end, basically, in funky jumbo packages, so not much to learn there. Jake Bobo, mediocre grade because he just can't get open because he's too slow. The little bit of credit he got was for run blocking, right? Run blocking, they gave him a good grade. But as a receiver, I think we've kind of figured out what we have here. He's a good player in moderation, but he cannot consistently get open. So if you were planning on Jake Bobo being a big part of this team, big part of this offense after this season, I think you got to scrap it because he's not going to get any faster. He's already middle-aged for an NFL player, honestly. Tariq Young, whatever. Tyler Lockett, bleh. I'm not saying it's Lockett's fault, but he does struggle to get open at this point in his career, and that's going to ding you. Noah Fant, bleh, whatever. Mostly because of run blocking, if we're being honest, but he was pretty nondescript in the passing game as well. Chenault, bleh. That's what happens when you drop your one decent target the whole game. Ken Walker, pretty weak. Pretty weak, man. You don't see Walker graded this low very often. And it was basically all because of his blocking, his run blocking, and I'm sorry, not all because of his run blocking, all because of his running. They liked what he did on passing downs, but they thought that as a running back, it was poor. That's interesting. You don't see that every day. I hesitate to blame Ken Walker a lot because I think that the play calling and offensive line are more to blame, but it is interesting that they dinged him so much for this game. Connor Williams gets beat up, which, I mean, yeah, right? It's nice to know that Pro Football Focus can capture things like the snap over Gino's head and stepping on Gino's foot. Which, by the way, I do think stepping on Gino's foot was Connor's fault because he got blasted backwards further than Gino was expecting, which ultimately that does kind of fall on Connor Williams to not get knocked back like that. But regardless, they did, I think, accurately capture the monster mistakes he made that cost us points. Farrell Brown, garbage. Mike Jarrell, I mean, I don't think I need to say it, right? Like, he's fighting out there. It's admirable what Mike Jarrell's doing, but he's not a good player. I think we need to accept that as a fan base. It's nice that he's trying and he's giving us something that isn't atrocious, but he's bad. And Christian Haynes, now that's atrocious. He didn't play very much and he drew a penalty when he did. So, what are you going to do, right? He's not there yet. And it's really frustrating because he was supposed to be a relatively finished product when we drafted him. That was my understanding of things. Okay, so looking at the passing chart for Geno Smith, I like to do this every week. First of all, the middle of the field continues to be the main focus of this offense. They had, 13 attempts in the middle stripe compared to, 8 stripes on the left and 4 stripes and 4 on the right. So that continues to at least be something that is working. But right away, you notice the big problem here, right? Nothing deep down the field. Not a single attempt more than 20 yards down the field. This is your offense with no DK Metcalf. And the people who talk about DK Metcalf being not that good or overrated or we need to trade him or whatever, look at this. Look at this and think about your future as a team. You can't even threaten them down the field. You can't even make them think about it. Something worth thinking about as a fan. Rushing by direction. Looking at this is kind of a joke, if we're being honest, because we didn't run the ball enough and we didn't run the ball successfully at all. The closest thing we had to a successful, successful rushing direction would be right guard, I guess. But that's one attempt for 3 yards. Like, that doesn't mean anything. We can't take anything away from that. So, yeah, it's just all bad, and the sample sizes aren't big enough to make any conclusions anyway, but can't run the ball. Can't run the ball at all right now. And if that doesn't get fixed, I don't think there's much of anything this team is going to be able to do because we become too predictable. All right, this isn't like those. There have been Patriots teams back during the Brady's maybe prime-ish era where they would just throw the ball 60 times every game and they wouldn't run the ball and they would use the passing attack as like an extension of the run game, and it worked. But that's with one of the best quarterbacks of all time. That's with one of the best coaches of all time. That's with personnel that are specifically designed to play like that. This team, they're not going to be able to do it like that. Pass blocking stuff on PFF. Again, you notice there are a pretty decent chunk of fairly good grades here. Like Cross graded out really well. He allowed 1 hurry in the whole game, which is really impressive when you consider we were in passing situations the whole game. Charbonnet, only 4 reps at it, but he was really good. Tomlinson, Walker, Fant even. Now, the right side of the line got beat up. I think Connor Williams mostly got a bad grade for the bad snap, admittedly, but he did allow a QB hit. They gave Bradford 2 pressures allowed. They gave Mike Gerald 4, including the sack. Now, the sack's garbage time. I don't really care about that. But it does show you that at the end of the day, he's a very fallible player. And at this point, we are probably better served by moving to Fant or Lucas ASAP. And then you have Christian Haynes allowing a hurry as well. He also had the penalty, so he gets ranked all the way down here. Not terribly surprising, not terribly not terribly disappointing, even given that we all watched that game and we saw that he's just not there yet. He just can't do it yet. And you actually end up with a fairly respectable game from this group in this area, even if the right side was having some legitimate problems over there. Left side was at least solid. Now, run blocking stuff, there's really not much we're going to learn here because of how unable we were to run the ball. I do find it to be notable that we continue to run more gap than zone in some of these games. It just... You know this team wants to run the ball on zone concepts. That's the talent that they have for the most part, except for Tomlinson. That's the running backs that they have. And it just feels like they're trying to find a solution, and they can't do it. It just seems like they're trying to go back and forth between zone and gap runs, majority on the offense, and nothing really works. Like, I mean, the only guy who got a standout grade in run blocking this week is a wide receiver, Bobo. And that is why we have him around. That is why he's on this team ultimately. So I still wonder if you have to get Bobo out there a little bit more. But again, there are severe limitations with him. He does not get open. He's too slow. Not to say that, Bradford doesn't deserve any credit for getting a decent grade here, so does Barner, but overall, you can see why this team struggles to run the ball so much. All right, so that's it for the PFF offense. I will see you guys later. Go Hawks. Not a good day, but we got to pick through the wreckage here and figure out what's going on. See you guys later. More videos coming. We'll look at the defense later. Go Hawks.